So, so what should I do if I want to start drawing an isometric? So I could do that. I can come down here and, oh, where do I do that? Where can I turn on isometric mode?
Oh.
Is it one of those buttons next to the scaling?
One of the buttons next to the scaling.
One of those three?
These? No. So it's over here. It's actually inside of the grid. So if you go into grid settings, it's right there. So it's the snap setting. So if I do that, it changes my grid here. What key, I'll just tell you. F5 switches my plane that I'm drawing on. If I draw a line, oh, it just happened to already have it set. So, but you want to have 30 degrees set on your polar tracking. If I turn on ortho for some reason, like I want to give myself a heartache, ortho will only go based on the directions of the grid. So you can see there. But polar tracking doesn't care. So since we're already using dynamic mode, polar tracking, I just make sure that it's set at 30, and that when you're drawing, you make sure that you're going with the grid. So things that are going with the grid, so at 30, 30, or 90, we can draw because we know the distances. We know those measurements, we can draw them over. Okay? Does that make sense? Things that are not along the grid, can I measure them? So like if I had this, is this line here, can I measure how long that line is?
Nope.
Is it at 30 degrees?
Yep.
Yep, so if this line is at 30 degrees, it's lined up with my grid, I can measure it.
Oh.
This one is along my grid, I can measure it. This one is along the grid, I can measure it. What about this line right here? It's not along the grid, so I can't measure it. So how would I create this line? Copy what? So in order to get this line, I have to kind of find the endpoints of it. So if I find this point, so I can just like come from here and go up, halfway, right? Or draw this line and then go from halfway there. But if I come over and I draw this line along that way, the 1.63 that way, and then I draw this line going this way, now I can find that corner and I can connect the dots.
Just polar tracking, right?
Yeah. So in order to do this, I just need to kind of triangulate where that other corner is. So if the line that I want isn't along the grid, I just need to find where those endpoints are that is on the grid. And that's kind of the hardest part about isometrics, is that you can't just like, oh, I measure this line. And so I can't measure this angle, I can't measure that line. I have to measure it in its components of X, Y, Z directions to find that other point. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so just to make this fun, let's do that one. So I have this over here. I want to draw it. So I can draw from here, and I'm just going to kind of, I'm going to start over here. So I'm going to start it on that side. I'm going to go this way, my 1.625, and that is way small. There, that's better. So from here, so at this point, I'm right here, right? I just drew this line. So where do I go from here? Yeah, I go that way, 1.625. And then from here, down here, where do I go? I go up, 1.65. And then from there, where do I go? So now I'm here. I could draw this line right here, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to point that way, 1.625. And then I'm just going to leave it alone there. So what's another line that I know that I can start at?
Halfway up on the right side, bottom right side.
That corner right.
I can start here, right, and go up. Or I can go here and draw up, and then I can come back down and draw on those lines, right? So that might be an easy thing. That way I can just keep drawing. I don't have to restart. I mean, it'd be fine to start here and go up and then over, or to start actually at this midpoint. That's probably a good place because it says half. Might as well start at the midpoint here and go this way.
That's what I was
Right?
thinking.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint, come this way, and look, polar track. Get that in there. Now come here, polar track up. Those in there. Does that make sense? Now I've got kind of both this face here and this face here and this edge done. So now do I have enough information to get this line? Yeah. So I can draw that line from that point to the midpoint, right? And I'm just going to do that. Now what? How do I get this line up here?
Draw a vertical line.
Even easier. So what was one of those rules I told you about things being parallel?
Offset them.
No? We cannot offset in isometrics. No, because if I offset this,
It's gonna go at an angle.
I'm going to just say 2. It's going to go that way. It's not going to go straight up. And whenever you're working in here, I can copy things. I can copy that and go straight up, right? So, but that's a bad thing. Where should I grab that? I should grab it here, right? Because I know where it needs to go. So remember the rule I told you the other day? If things are parallel in real life, they're parallel in all the views. So these two edges are parallel in real life. When we drew them multi-view, these two became one edge because this surface is vertical, right? So they're vertical here, they're connected here, they're going to be parallel and connected here. So now I can just draw a line from there to there. And then from where does it go?
To the corner.
Back to that corner. And then from here I can just draw back at my 30 degrees, and it just happens to hit that exact point. That's just because this distance and that distance are the same. So when it goes back, it's going to hit. And there we go. All right. Any questions on that piece of it? So now we're going to kind of go off the rails. Let's say I wanted to have a hole right here on this face.
You're
Yeah,
gonna
it
need a
needs to be not a circle, right? So if I look at the end of my water bottle, I look at it straight, it's a circle. But if I turn it, is it a circle anymore? No. No, because a slot is circular ends on straight sides. What's another? So Aaron's saying oval. What's another name of this?
Cylinder.
No. It's ellipse. So right here we have the ellipse commands. So it's an ellipse. And so I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go ellipse. I'm going to pick the center option. But actually, this is the one thing that picking off the menu. Either way that I pick it, oh, there it is. If you pick just the end one, that's what we do. Now we can see our options. If I pick the center one, it automatically selects the center option. You can see on the command line, it picked the C for center. But if you pick the axis endpoint, it'll let you get to your options. And so, you see an option here that probably wasn't here before? The Isocircle. So instead of just having to draw some random ellipse, because we can do it, we could measure it out and put it in ellipse, but that Isocircle is a really nice thing. So if I pick that, specify my center of my isocircle. So I'm going to say midway between 2 points, between there and there. And is that the right direction?
No.
What do I do to make it go the right direction?
5.
F5. Oh, that's not the right direction. That's not, that one is.
F5 changes direction.
Yep.
On anything.
Just in isometric circles. So once you turn ISO mode on, by turning on that isometric snap, then you get this option. Could I have drawn the rest of this thing without turning on isometric snap? And just left my snap at rectangular? Could I draw it like this? You sure? Because if I draw 30-degree lines, 90-degree lines, 30-degree lines, oops, go into here and go to tell it to track using all polar angles. Oops. Ah, what are you doing? So I could draw isometric without having ISO mode turned on. But if I try and go to ellipse now, the Isocircle option is gone. So you have to turn on the isometric snap here if you want to be able to do an isocircle. And that's really its entire use, is being able to draw isometric circles. And so one of the customizations that I like to do to my interface is if I'm going to be drawing an isometric slot, I'll make a new button for Isocircles, which turns on isometric snap and starts the ellipse command. And then once it's done, it gets out of it, just so that my grid goes back to being normal. So here, I have the same thing as like when I get in a circle. I can either put in the radius or it can ask me. I can select the option to go to diameter. So I can say diameter, and I can tell it I want my diameter to be 0.5, whatever. Cool. So now the circle is going all the way through the part. And I could draw my hidden, so if I turn on my hidden lines, I could draw some hidden lines. Usually we don't show hidden lines in isometrics because they get kind of overdone. You can see by adding hidden lines, we kind of get a lot going on. So usually we don't do that because it's actually would have this one too. Oops. And then we'd have to have the circle there. So usually we don't do hidden lines on isometrics. But if this hole is, I can't see where it ends, so it's going all the way through. But if this is like a shallow hole, like a counterbore or something like that, then I can just copy this one backwards, the depth of the counterbore. So maybe 0.12. And maybe now I've got another circle going through it, so I can pick that center point there, diameter 0.25. Oops, and make that back to be in my object layer. And I can just trim off those pieces. So now I have my counterboard hole, and then there's the hole going through all the way. Okay? Does that make sense? What if I was doing some kind of outside cylinder? So like if on, so, you know, I want to draw my water bottle. Let's say I just want to draw a cylinder like this, a positive cylinder, not a cut negative cylinder. How would I do that? Yep, so ellipse, Isocircle, pick here. And so I can tell which way I want to go. Oops, wrong layer, but let's say I want to go the opposite way there. Go there. I'm going to say this is diameter 3. Oops. Come on. Object. And object. All right, so I want to make this thing be longer, right? So I can just copy this, point the direction. So even though it doesn't line up with the grid, that doesn't matter because I still want to go 30 degrees that way. And I can tell it to go 7. Is that how it should be? Or am I missing some things? I need to connect the two circles, right? So when I'm looking at it, the front one I can see the whole ellipse. The back one I'm only able to see half of it, right? But how do I know which half that is? And where to stop?
You draw tangent lines?
Draw tangent lines. So let's see if that works. So if I right click, tangent. Uh-oh. Was that tangent? That is not tangent.
Not even close. Yeah. Okay, never mind.
But you have the right idea. I need to draw a line that is tangent to the arc, but the O-snap doesn't work. So if I draw a line just from the center, or if I track out from the center, and if I just go up the 60 degrees, and now I can draw it out tangent. So the key is to start here and go that way. So the 60 degree tracking, and once you hit the arc, then you can go the other way. So same thing going down here, come down here, I draw it up. Now you can see this line is tangent with that arc, or with the ellipse. And now I can just trim out this part there. So that's the key to it. You have to kind of, you know that your 30s are going this way. If you want to have your a cylinder that's tangent to it, you want to draw that tangent line, you go at the 60 degree instead of the 30.
Can you show how you pick the counterbore again?
Okay, so let's just put it on here. So I'm going to do Isocircle. Center it there. And let's say I want to be 1.5" counterbore. So I just copy that, go that way, and I want it to be 1/2 inch deep. So now I've created that, and then I can do another one. It's a really big one. So now here's my counterbore and my little tiny hole there. So if I go to the properties here, you can see I don't have the same properties I did with the circle. I can't just change the radius. So even on this one that's a full, I can't just go in and tell it, no, I want the radius to be this, because it's an ellipse now. It's an ellipse that's stretched and rotated the right amount. I can't go in and change it. So like if I grab the grip, I can do that and mess it up. Now it's not an isocircle anymore. So once you do it, you're kind of stuck with it. If you don't like it, I could just scale this, right? If I want it to be 1/2 inch instead of 1/4, say go 2 times, and then trim it. There. I could also, if I draw from that center point over my radius, you can see it's connecting from the center point up and over to where it hits that. So if I have one that I don't know how big it is, I can always just draw a line from the center and then draw across it. And the length of that line tells me the diameter of that thing. Okay, does that make sense? So
Yep.
what if I was gonna have like a groove around this? I need to have like a little inset groove. Let's see, over here I want like a little square groove going around it. Do the same thing, just copy this. And let's say, come back to I want to go back 3 inches. And I want the groove to be 1/4 inch wide, right? And then I just need to control how deep it is. So I know that between these, it's probably going to go away, but I'm probably not going to need that. So I'm going to get rid of that part of it. And then from here, and so let's say that was a 3-inch Isocircle there. So let's say it was 2.75. So now I can just trim. Trim out that. Trim out that. I can't see that. I can't see that, right? And there we go. If the groove was wider, then I would be able to see where this went down in there. But that's what I would see there. Does that make sense? So if I kind of go back and I made these be wider, like that. Now I can trim out those. But now I need to have a line connecting here. So I can just go from my center point here down that way, center point up. Oops. Right? Because I need to have that tangent line there showing that it's that diameter and it's round. So that's how we do it. We just copy along that angle, create what we need, and figure out what to trim. Now you see why 3D is so fun. Doing 3D that's why I do 3D and I wouldn't draw things in 2D if I didn't have to. But it's still a good skill to have because some things makes it easier. And like I said before, with AutoCAD we have complete control about everything we do. So like creating even these views here, SOLIDWORKS doesn't like to do these dimension isometrics. And Fusion doesn't do it. I did these in Inventor because I could do it, but I could do it in AutoCAD really easy also, because now I can control exactly what I'm doing. And so you're going to say, but how do I get it to go like that, right? By trying to dimension it?